When we deal with Pakistan, we have to understand the seriousness, means why we should have a very thoughtful approach towards Pakistan. Fine, we need a very serious thinking, lot of thought process in evolving a policy towards Pakistan. The reason is, if the question is why should we have well thought of policy towards Pakistan, because Pakistan is not a normal state. Fine. If it's a normal country run by the government, the things become easier. But what is the fundamental problem in Pakistan? That Pakistan is not a normal state. Fine. When I say Pakistan is not a normal state, it means that Pakistan is a troublemaker. Pakistan, North Korea, they are not the normal states, they are the troublemakers. However, for these troublemakers, there is a specific term in international relations, and that specific term is that Pakistan is a rogue state. Pakistan officially has never been declared as a rogue state, but Pakistan is a rogue state. Pakistan can also be called as a pariah state. So Pakistan character is very close to North Korea, means Pakistan does not have that much economic integration. Fine. Had Pakistan been a responsible state and a normal state, it would have been a responsible stakeholder in international politics. So that is also not a case. The thing is that when India deals with Pakistan, India should have a clear vision about Pakistan. So when India deals with Pakistan, India should have a very clear view about Pakistan. Fine. And this clear view is that Pakistan is not a normal member of international community. Pakistan is not a normal member of international community. That means Pakistan is not a responsible stakeholder. Fine. You cannot expect Pakistan to act sensibly and to act in a responsible manner. The way Pakistan conduct itself, the way it provides shelter to the terrorist organizations. Obviously, you cannot consider Pakistan as a normal state. So, what is Pakistan? Pakistan is a rogue state. And what state is a rogue state? Point number one, which is troublesome for the neighbors. Next, which goes for using terrorism as the instrument of state policy. So, it doesn't use dialogue, negotiations as an instrument of state policy. It goes for terrorism. And as said that, like, it is almost captured by the non-state actors. And third, which is involved in the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, primarily nuclear weapons. Fine. So, it is what? Pakistan is also seriously pursuing the arms race, even when its economy is almost a collapsed one. So, it is not acting in a sensible manner, and that is why you call it as a mad child with loaded gun. So, in this context, you have to decide who has to act more sensibly. Fine. The very question is whether India is right in forcing Pakistan to act in a sensible manner. So, before dealing with Pakistan, we have to have a very clarity about the nature of state the Pakistan is. And we have to understand that when India expects Pakistan to act in a responsible manner fine or to act normally. Is India politically naive, or is India too idealistic or too impractical? So when India expects Pakistan to act responsibly, what does that mean? We expect Pakistan not to use terror or terrorism as a state policy. The very question is, are we in our senses that Pakistan will not use terrorism when Pakistan itself is a state which is almost hijacked by the terrorists? So, for example, you talk to terrorists and say, don't commit the act of terrorism. So, how is that possible? Again, you expect Pakistan to deal with to deal with India, to resolve the disputes with India like a normal state. So what normal state does? Normal state tries to resolve the disputes as per international law through the dialogue, through negotiations. Fine. When none of these things can work with Pakistan, why are we making these things? When we talk with Pakistan, why we bring forward that Pakistan should not be using terrorism as a state policy? Whereas there are so many reports which show the non-state actors are the arms of Pakistan state. For example, the Haqqani network in Afghanistan has been declared by American agencies or American intelligence agencies as the veritable arm of Pakistan's ISI. Fine. So the state whose nature and character is not normal, it will be politically naive if India expect the normal things. So India's position is Pakistan should stop terrorism. There cannot be any talks with terrorism. Fine. So I don't believe that. It seems so paradoxical that you are talking to a terrorist and saying don't use terror. Again, when India says that Kashmir issue has to be resolved as per Shimla agreement through dialogue, again we are giving very confusing signals and we are appearing very immature, or either we are not understanding the nature of the state of Pakistan, or we are underestimating the threat Pakistan poses, and we are undervaluing the importance to have a sound policy for Pakistan. Okay, so keep this thing in mind. And the second thing is, today China and Pakistan, they have become one, and China has been using Pakistan as its proxy. Fine. And China and Pakistan, they declare their friendship as all weather friends. this is the only example in international politics. Normally, it is said that in international politics, there is no permanent enemy and no permanent friend. But this is the only example of all weather friendship where they describe their friendship as higher than mountains, deeper than oceans, and sweeter than honey, stronger than iron, and with CPEC corridor, this is also going to become physically one and not just emotionally. So this is the additional challenge. This is the two front challenge which India is facing. And you can say that India Pakistan rivalry is called as eternal. It is an eternal rivalry. Fine. Means this rivalry will ever end. That is also a very big question mark. So if China-Pakistan relationship is like all-weather friendship, India-Pakistan, they have the eternal rivalry. Fine. And it seems that this rivalry is not going to end. Fine. The rivalry is eternal. And one of the experts on India-Pakistan relation, Stephen P. Cohen, in his book on India-Pakistan, Shooting for Century, means at least they will fight against each other for 100 years. Fine, they will continue to shoot. Fine, but Stephen P. Cohen says that the only other example of such eternal rivalry are Arab and Jewish, or you can say the only other examples are Palestinians and Jewish rivalry, or the Tamil and Sinhalese rivalry in Sri Lanka. So these are some type of rivalries. Like, it is very difficult to assume that Palestinian and Jewish relations will improve ever. It is equally impossible to assume that the Tamil and Singhali rivalry in Sri Lanka will ever end. And India-Pakistan rivalry also comes into same situation, that they are considered as eternal rivals. Fine. They are considered as eternal rivals. What does that mean? It means that even when they resolve the dispute over Kashmir, so even when they resolve their dispute over Kashmir, though this is also not going to happen, but in case they are able to resolve their dispute over Kashmir, it is believed that still the rivalry will not end. Even if they resolve water issue, they resolve Sar Creek, they resolve Siachen issue, but India-Pakistan rivalry will end. It will not happen. So why so? Fine. Why so? Why such pessimism? Why we do not see any light at the end of the tunnel? Fine. So why for India? India says terrorism is a main issue. Pakistan says Kashmir is a main issue. But scholars believe that even if Kashmir issue is solved, which itself has given rise to terrorism, the things are not going to change and they will continue to remain the eternal rivals. The question is why so? Why we do not see any light at the end of the tunnel? Because this particular question is linked to the very identity or existence of Pakistan. Because the issue is linked to the identity and to the existence of Pakistan. So the fundamental problem is, what is the fundamental problem? Fine. The fundamental problem here is Pakistan's identity crisis. Second is Pakistan's sense of deep insecurity towards India. So the fundamental problem is that Pakistan from the very beginning nurtures the deep sense of insecurity towards India, and Pakistan suffers from the crisis of its identity. Okay, so the fundamental problem, that is why we have to understand that Kashmir is one of the most interactable Kashmir is one of the most interactable problem not because of its location or not because of its resources. They are fighting not just to have an advantage at a location or the resources, but the conflict of Kashmir is basically the conflict of identity. It is a conflict of identity. So there are a lot of problems in Pakistan, and India has a very limited scope to manage these particular problems, or India has limited will to manage the psychosis of Pakistan. So the fundamental problem lies in the crisis of identity and the deep sense of insecurity Pakistan has towards India. So now let us talk about the crisis of identity. The crisis of identity faced by Pakistan. Fine. The crisis of identity faced by Pakistan. What crisis of identity it faces? So you have to understand that Pakistan is the only second state after Israel which is based on religion. There is no other country in the world whose identity or whose existence, whose creation has been based on the ground of religion. Fine. And Pakistan also put forwards this big question that whether religion provides a durable basis, whether religion provides the durable basis of nationhood. So the problem which we face with Pakistan is unique. With each country of South Asia, we have some common problems and some unique problems. So one fundamental problem which Pakistan faces towards India is the identity crisis, that whether religion can be the basis for statehood. Fine. So we understand that Pakistan has been created on the basis of Jinnah and Iqbal's two nation theory. Right? So Pakistan has been created on the basis of two nation theory. Fine. So Iqbal projected the idea of Pakistan as a separate state or land for the Muslims of the subcontinent. So Pakistan, Iqbal has put forward the idea of Pakistan as a separate state or a land for the Muslims of the subcontinent. Fine. Because he believed that if India will become independent and India will adopt democracy and in India Hindus will be in majority, then the Muslims will be compelled to live under the laws made by Hindus, whereas Muslims are supposed to live under the Shariat law. So Iqbal has developed the idea of Pakistan as a land for the Muslims of the subcontinent. Fine. Now for this, the problem, the two question or the two challenges, or you can say that the challenges for Iqbal's theory is point number one, existence of India. Fine. So the existence of India, the continuation of India as a multicultural dash multi-religious secular state, multicultural and the multi-religious secular state. Fine. This is the biggest problem for Pakistan. So Pakistan is not going to be contented only if it gets Kashmir. So Pakistan's problem is not just Kashmir. Pakistan's problem is beyond Kashmir. Pakistan's problem is the existence of India as a multicultural and multi-religious secular state. Fine. And especially or multi-religious and multi-secular state which not only treats majority and minority, which not only treats the majority and minority as equal citizens, fine, for example, which grants Article 14 equality before law, which introduces universal adult suffrage, no communal representation, which dares to treat the majority and minority as the equal citizens, plus which also grants special rights to the minorities to preserve their language, script and culture. Article 29 and Article 30, and which allows minorities to follow their own personal laws and does not impose uniform civil code. Fine. So this itself is a very big challenge. The existence of India as a secular state where minorities can live without fear, where there is a rule of law, where there is a equality before law, and where minorities not only enjoy equality before law, but special safeguards to protect their culture and their way of life. So that challenges the very rationale for Pakistan. Now, the second thing is we can talk about the idea of Jinnah, which he has borrowed from Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, who is known as the originator of the two nation theory. Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, and according to which Hindus and Muslims are two different nations or race or communities oblique com, and they have to live separately. We will not go into the details of the two nation theory, but again, if India continues to live or continues to be a country where Hindus and Muslims they continue to have peaceful coexistence and are able to maintain the communal harmony, it challenges the very rationale and the very idea of Pakistan, and this challenge gets enhanced when in 1971 Bangladesh was created as a separate state. When Bangladesh was created as a separate state, now creation of Bangladesh has been a nation on ground of language. A nation of the Bengali speaking and not the Urdu speaking language, and Bangladesh has been the first jolt to the Pakistan's two nation theory or Pakistan's concept of a nation based on religion. Fine. So, this crisis of identity has been accentuated with the creation of Bangladesh in 1971, and because there is a role of India in creation of Bangladesh. There is a role of India in creation of Bangladesh. Pakistan nurtures the deep sense of insecurity. It nurtures the deep sense of insecurity vis-a-vis India, along with the huge asymmetry in terms of size, population. Fine. So Pakistan has a deep sense of insecurity. And Pakistan not only has the deep sense of insecurity, Pakistan also has a deep sense of revenge. Fine. It has developed the deep sense of revenge vis-a-vis India because of the partition or creation of Bangladesh. So when Pakistan looks towards India, India poses an identity crisis to Pakistan. India give rise to the feeling of revenge and deep insecurity in the attitude of Pakistan, and that is the fundamental problem with Pakistan. Fine. And as a result, because of these deep insecurity and revengefulness, deep sense of insecurity and revengefulness, Pakistan pursues the policy, fine, which creates the existential threat to India, which creates existential threat to India. Fine. So Pakistan pursues a policy which creates existential threat to India. Fine. But which has also proved detrimental to its own interest. So, in the process of revengefulness and this deep insecurity, Pakistan has pursued, sometimes when we think negative of others, we end up harming ourselves more. So, Pakistan is a classical example where Pakistan poses the existential threat to India, but at a cost which cannot be considered as sensible. Fine, which is detrimental to Pakistan's interest. Fine, it means Pakistan has pursued a highly dangerous and costly policy. Means it has pursued the policy which is not worth paying such a cost. Pakistan's policy is not worth. In fact, Pakistan is facing a huge cost. Pakistan is suffering more than India, but still the feeling of revenge dominates so much of Pakistan's mind that it is unable to take or to bring itself out of its own trap. Fine. So Pakistan has ultimately got into the trap. You can say that Pakistan's behavior is not rational. A rational person will go for a cost and benefit analysis and will not pursue that enterprise where cost is higher than the benefit. But that is not the case with Pakistan. So Pakistan goes for highly emotive policy, very psychological or insecure. It nurtures the huge sense of insecurity and not a rational policy. And that is why, for me, Pakistan is like a mad child with a loaded gun. And when India deals with Pakistan, it is very essential that India understands the nature and the character of that particular state and the peculiar problem it faces when it deals with Pakistan. Fine. So, what has been the Pakistan's policy towards India, and in what way Pakistan is paying the huge cost? Let us understand. So, what has been Pakistan's policy towards India, and what cost Pakistan is paying? Fine. So, what has been Pakistan's policy towards India? So, like human beings, we have our unique personalities. Similarly, nations also have a unique personality, and it is very important that we understand the personality of Pakistan as a nation from the very beginning. Okay, so Pakistan's policy towards India, Pakistan's policy towards India is shaped by Pakistan's identity or Pakistan's personality. So Pakistan's policy towards India is shaped by Pakistan's peculiar identity and Pakistan's own personality. Okay, so first of all, Pakistan has deep insecurity vis-a-vis India. Fine. So Pakistan has a deep insecurity vis-a-vis India. Why? Because of huge asymmetry in terms of population, in terms of size, and that exists with all the nations, and Pakistan also suffers from it, and hence Pakistan emerges as a weaker party vis-a-vis India. Pakistan emerges as a weaker party vis-a-vis India. Now, how a weaker party behaves? Fine. So you have to understand the behavior of weaker party. So the weaker party in the war, what is a weaker party? The weaker party is always more insecure. And more insecure you are, fine, you will be more unstable. If more insecure, you will be more unstable, and you will be the first to initiate war. It is the sense of insecurity that the weaker party tends to take the first step towards the war because of the sense of insecurity. Fine, if I am insecure, I will be making more noise. Fine, so it's a natural that, and in most of the cases, in international relations, it has been observed that the weaker party has been the first to attack. Fine. So, the natural behavior of the weaker party is the first to attack because they think that before the other party becomes too strong that you cannot deal, it is better that you settle the score now. Or this mental problem comes and you will feel that whatever happens, let us go for the extreme step. Fine. And consequently what we see that Pakistan has initiated 3 full scale regular wars, first in 1947, second in 1956, next in 1971. And in all these wars, Pakistan suffered the defeat. Fine. And Pakistan also had one short and irregular war, which is like 1999 Kargil war. But let us talk about these 3 wars, 47, 56 and the 71 war. Fine. So in all the 3 wars, which were the conventional wars, Pakistan faced defeat, and 1971 war was the most humiliating one, when 90,000 soldiers of Pakistan have surrendered unconditionally and Pakistan lost East Pakistan or Bangladesh. So this was the most humiliating defeat, and Pakistan at that time was a member of US led military or defense pacts, but Pakistan didn't get any substantial help. US did not intervene directly in the war on behalf of Pakistan for various reasons, that Pakistan has been an aggressor. Pakistan has been a member of US defense pacts like SEATO and CENTO, but in defense pacts, attack on one is considered as attack on the other, so all have to join. But in this case, the situation was that Pakistan was not attacked, rather Pakistan was an aggressor, and hence USA was not committed to come in Pakistan's defense. Another thing is that Pakistan, since lost in the conventional war, so what Pakistan did after 1971, Pakistan rushed to gain the nuclear weapons Pakistan went to gain the nuclear weapons to establish the equilibrium vis-a-vis India. Means against India's superiority in a conventional war, Pakistan tried to establish equilibrium by acquiring the nuclear weapons. Fine. So Pakistan pursued the nuclear arms race at the cost of development. So Pakistan as a poor country, but the sense of insecurity has been so high that instead of going for development and spending the money there, Pakistan preferred to spend the money in acquiring the weapons of mass destruction to gain some sort of equilibrium in the war. Now, the second thing is Pakistan started the policy of low intensity warfare. Means if not able to win in the regular war, it started irregular war. Fine. It started asymmetrical war. Now, what is this asymmetrical war? That is the use of non-state actors. Fine. Or using terrorist organizations. So, what has become Pakistan's policy? So, after 1971, Pakistan followed the policy of giving thousand cuts to India. Fine. So Pakistan said that instead of one major conventional war, let us go for the policy of 1,000 cuts, means use the terrorist organizations and create the cuts and bloods in India. This policy of 1,000 cuts is known as the war of attrition. This is called as war of attrition. So actually, India and Pakistan never had the normal relations. We have been consistently at war. The regular wars, the proxy wars, or the war of attrition, besides the war of words. What is the war of attrition? War of attrition is giving 1,000 cuts or long drawn war, and the objective of war of attrition. So what Pakistan is doing in Kashmir is the war of attrition, giving thousand cuts and bleed India gradually, with the idea is long drawn war to defeat India psychologically, by bringing war weariness. To defeat India psychologically by bringing war weariness. Fine. Now it's not that when Pakistan pursued a policy of giving thousand cuts and harboring terrorist organizations, it's not that Pakistan had not been adversely affected. Today, Pakistan is one of the most adversely affected state by terrorism itself. I believe you have not forgotten the Peshawar attacks on the school children, where many schools children have died. Every now and then there are terrorist attacks in Karachi and elsewhere in Pakistan, that Pakistan has ended up becoming one of the worst affected states from terrorism. Fine. So Pakistan's policy, like, it is believed that the terrorist organizations or the non-state actors, fine, they are like Frankenstein's monster. Frankenstein's monster is a phrase to denote that one who kills his own creator. So that is why if once you take the help of the criminals, they will become so much extortionist that they themselves become the problem. However, the deep sense of insecurity which Pakistan has, Pakistan nurtures, it compels Pakistan to walk on the road which itself is full of thorn and fire, and Pakistan fails to recognize that you are not safe when your neighbor's house is burning. So the idea is you are not safe if your neighbor's house is burning, and that is why if you look at the recent national security document of Pakistan, it does mention, released by Prime Minister Imran Khan in January, itself talks about the importance or to deal with terrorism and how terrorism has become a threat. Fine. So Pakistan state is itself in the state of sabotage, and today we can say that not only the civilian government in Pakistan but even the military in Pakistan is realizing how big threat the terrorist organizations are In the past, there have been attacks on Pakistan's own military establishments, and that is why we see that time and again Pakistan's military heads are now talking about mending the relations with India, the so called Bajwa doctrine, which talks about the importance of normalization of the relations with India and going for peace with India, but of course, not without conditions, but with conditions. And today, the policy which Pakistan has pursued towards India, the worst sufferers are not the people of India or the people of Kashmir, but the worst sufferers have become the people of Pakistan themselves. Fine. So the worst sufferers have become the people of Pakistan, and we see the everyday protest that happens in Pakistan against those who are in power. Fine. So the worst sufferers have become the people of Pakistan. Fine. And Pakistan's sense of insecurity vis-a-vis India has not let democracy to take roots in Pakistan. Pakistan continues to remain a post-colonial, overdeveloped state, fine, where the state represented by the military and bureaucracy holds all the power, and where the people are powerless. The pursuit for arms race, the policy of terrorism has brought Pakistan to the state of economic collapse, where Pakistani Prime Minister going with a begging bowl to not just the donor agencies but to Saudi Arabia and to China has become the new normal. And even like it is the sense of enmity towards India that has led Pakistan to ignore this fact that Pakistan has made itself a colony of China, and there have been protests against Chinese projects in Pakistan. So, like in its madness, it is unable to get the things. So, Pakistan has brought itself in such a situation that it is very difficult that Pakistan will be able to come out of the quagmire in which it has brought itself. And the unfortunate part is that the fire of Pakistan is also burning India. And the two countries which were the integrated whole once went for the artificial partition. Shashi Tharoor talks about them as the enemy brothers. And the problem is that not only their histories are linked, not only their births are linked, their destinies are also linked. So both India and Pakistan, they have to sit together and to understand that neither India is safe if Pakistan is burning, nor Pakistan, and it will require a huge will and statesmanship and determination and lot of imaginative solution to come out of this quagmire which these two countries have built for each other. Fine. So what we see that the Pakistan's grand strategy vis-a-vis India at present has been: point number one, to pursue low intensity warfare against India under the shadow of nuclear umbrella. Fine. And you can call it the nuclear blackmailing of India. And the second grand strategy is to seek an external balancer, and that external balancer earlier was USA, now it is China, and is ready to pay the cost which is detrimental to its own interests. So one of the fundamental problem which Pakistan has is that India has become a part of its personality, a part of its existence. Fine. So the idea of India, if it continues, that creates a huge identity crisis for Pakistan. And regarding Pakistan, it is said that Pakistan's nationalism constitute of Pakistan's nationalism constitute of 99% hatred for India and 1% love for Pakistan. So that is a problem. Like any typical movie of Salman Khan, where the amount of hatred is many times more than the amount of love for itself. So that is a peculiar problem. India is part and parcel of Pakistan's identity, but unfortunately, it has brought a very negative perception of India. Now, besides this, Pakistan has this belief or continue to believe that India or majority in India has not reconciled. Majority in India has not reconciled with the existence of Pakistan, the bitterness of partition is continuing, and Pakistan harbors this view that India wants to undo the partition, which becomes stronger after 1971 war, and again when some sections in India they talk about Akhand Bharat vision, because there are people in India who have not yet accepted the fact of this partition. Time and again, officially also, we see that such statements come, and Pakistan believes that if India's power increases, Pakistan may end up losing its own existence. So, the bitterness of partition and the sense Pakistan needs to be dealt more at the psychological level, and we should not forget that this bitterness has not only impacted these two countries, entire South Asia and beyond. So I can refer here Dilip Hero, who in his book The Longest August, means that partition day, he believes it is still continuing like the Banquo's ghost, shaping the prospects or the generations of Asia. And today South Asia has become obviously one of the most dangerous places. So this has been the overview of Pakistan's approach towards India. And when India has to have a policy towards Pakistan, we cannot keep ourselves away from this particular fact. So Pakistan's problem is peculiar, and Pakistan policy has to be very, very well thought of policy.